10 years ago, in the small East African country of Rwanda, 800,000 people were slaughtered by their own government.
This was ordinary men, women, and children, and the only reason that they were killed was because they were Tutsi.
Virtually the entire world turned away and did almost nothing to stop the genocide.
In retrospect, it all looks very clear, but at the time, what was happening in Rwanda, the situation was unclear.
They cannot tell me that they didn't know. Everybody knew what was happening.
Tonight on Frontline, the full story of perhaps the darkest and most brutal tragedy of our time. It is a story told by the victims and by the killers, by those who turned away and by those who stayed and tried desperately to save as many people as they could.
By the time the genocide was over, I was so angry at America. America the beautiful, America the brave.
They are all still haunted by what happened.
I was the commander, and hundreds of thousands of people died. I can't find any solace in statements like I did my best.
Still haunted by the ghosts of Rwanda.
Rwanda will never, ever leave me. It's in the pores of my body. My soul is in those hills. My spirit is with the spirits of all those people who were slaughtered and killed that I know of. And lots of those eyes still haunt me. Angry eyes or innocent eyes. No laughing eyes. But the worst eyes that haunt me are the eyes of those people who are totally bewildered. They're looking at me with my blue beret, and they're saying, what in the hell happened? How come I'm dying here? Those eyes dominate, and they're absolutely right. How come I failed? How come my mission failed? How come, as the commander, I did not convince, I lost soldiers, and 800,000 people died?
For General Romeo Dallaire, commander of the United Nations Assistance Mission for Rwanda, it was his first trip to Africa.
You know, the first breath of air of Africa. Oh, what a phenomenal experience. It felt like you were in another continent. It was different. Felt a little nervousness, of course, you know, of the first shaking hands with those leaders and starting up the mission.
For Dallaire, a Canadian general who had never seen action, this was the command of a lifetime, a UN peacekeeping mission in the heart of Africa. His job seemed simple. He would enforce a peace agreement between the Rwandan government in Kigali and a rebel army positioned behind a ceasefire line. The rebels were mostly Tutsis, an ethnic minority that had been persecuted for decades.
Some of us had been refugees since 1959. And over the years, in early 60s, in 70s, there had been killings of Tutsis in different parts of Rwanda. So we mainly focused on the very fact that there was need for change in the country, and that these stateless people, ourselves, were everywhere in the neighboring countries and beyond, needed to come back home.
The rebel threat had heightened tensions between Tutsis and the ethnic majority, the Hutus. The Hutus had ruled since independence from Belgium in the early 60s. Under the UN-backed peace accord, the Hutus would be forced to share power with the Tutsi rebels. But the peace process was already faltering, even as General Dallaire set up his command center in a rundown Kigali hotel. With only 2,500 lightly armed troops, he was ill-prepared to enforce a fragile peace in a country he did not understand.
We had very, very little information, knowledge of the background to Rwanda, its history, its culture, what had taken place in the country since independence or even before independence, and especially even in the last couple of years. So we went in quite blind.
From the moment he arrived, someone was testing Dallaire's ability to keep the peace. There were mysterious riots and assassinations.
And also, we were already getting all these stories about a third force, of squadrons of killers, and we couldn't confirm anything. We were just getting all that, as rumors, innuendos, and we couldn't cross-check the damn stuff because I was not allowed to have an intelligence capability. So all that sort of came as a dark cloud. Ultimately, I felt we could do it. But that is a bravado, I think, also from my part. Nothing was going to stop me. Bit of innocence in there, eh?
Then, from inside the Third Force, an informant emerged. The informant revealed that a secretive group of Hutu extremists was plotting to derail the peace agreement and exterminate their enemies.
And he was within the higher structures of the MND party, which was the hardline party of the president. He said that he simply wasn't going to continue to work in that atmosphere, that they were undermining the whole process, and they were ultimately planning the evilest of deeds of attacking not only Tutsis, but all the moderate Hutu leaders also.
The informant was a trainer for the Interahamwe, a paramilitary youth movement. He said they were planning to kill some of Dallaire's troops, Belgian soldiers, the backbone of the peacekeeping force.
Jean-Pierre, the informant, said they felt that if the Belgians were killed, that Belgium and the UN would pack up and leave. So already the situation was changing, that somebody didn't want us there, and that they were going to target us to encourage us to go.
In an urgent cable to the UN leadership, Dallaire repeated the informant's warnings that there was a plan to exterminate all Tutsis in Kigali, that Belgian peacekeepers would also be killed, in the belief that Belgium would then withdraw all its troops. Dallaire told New York he was going to raid the militia's arms caches. He signed off in his native French. Where there's a will, there's a way. Let's go.
I sent that, and then I went to bed and probably slept one of the best nights I had, because I felt that finally we were going to take a certain level of control that would permit us to do so much more.
The cable arrived in New York at the UN's peacekeeping department, then run by Kofi Annan.
The fax came in, and General Dallaire had also been in touch on the phone with General Baril. And in fact, he has sent other messages where sometimes he's questioned that somebody came and gave me this information. I don't know how sincere it is, whether I'm being manipulated or not, because intelligence can also be used to manipulate you.
Annan was skeptical. In his response, he ordered Dallaire first not to take any action, and second, to share the informant's secrets with the Rwandan government, which he knew had strong ties to the Hutu extremists.
Why did we go that route? Often shining light on these things and telling those planning it at the governmental level that the international community knows what is being planned. We are monitoring, we are going to deal with you harshly, and we know what you're up to. Sometimes it's a very good deterrent.
Annan told Dallaire he was not to raid the arms caches, and he must avoid any action that might cause UN troops to use force.
The big hammer at the end of the message that came to me within hours of my sending my information message was stop, cease, and by the by, you're totally outside of your mandate. At that time, the whole philosophy was, we don't want another Mogadishu, and so keep it tight.
Mogadishu. 3 months earlier, when the Black Hawks were shot down in Somalia and 18 American soldiers died on a UN mission, it changed everything about Washington's commitment to peacekeeping, especially in Africa.
The Clinton administration was brought to its knees by the problem in Somalia. A Secretary of Defense was fired, a presidency was dramatically weakened, they were enormously criticized for this adventure in Somalia, and now you had another situation unfolding in Rwanda, and certainly no one was clamoring for a re-intervention into the heart of Africa.
Despite the growing sense of danger, Kigali was teeming with thousands of Western expatriates. Diplomats, aid workers, and their families. The official line from the UN and all their embassies was that Rwanda was still safe.
It was strange because on the one hand, here's little groups of 8 UN soldiers fully decked out, you know, with all of their gear and their machine guns and everything, patrolling the city of 8, you know, and we used to joke, you can't spit without hitting a UN car. And so you got all this white vehicles, black UN all over them, and occasionally you would see some white tanks or something. There was an incredible sense of security in that. And yet we also knew things were going to blow.
Hutu extremists were now confident the UN would not stand in their way. They imported thousands of machetes, prepared death lists, and began targeting their political opponents.
It became simply a nightmare for the Tutsis, for all of the members of the opposition parties, even if they were Hutu. And we lived through a series of political assassinations almost on a daily basis. Every day God gave us, we had 3, 4, 5 dead bodies, people that we picked up on the streets every day.